Greetings, salutations, and welcome to After Action. I'm your host, Patrick Kreeger. I'm joined once again by Christopher Gillen.
I feel like I never get to leave. Trapped here. Help. Been kidnapped.
I find it kind of funny that most of our guests feel that way.
Yeah, you just need more guests, man.
Well, I got you. I got Matt. I got you.
Yeah, exactly.
Stephen is actually joining us here shortly for the 25 Days of Christmas.
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's still November. We're not doing that yet.
I know you don't want to do it, but we gotta get some groundwork in there.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man.
The
world is not enough. Denise Richards' character, her name is Christmas Jones, and there is a fantastic line in the film, which I won't mention until we get there.
Fair enough.
But it's a pun and a sexual innuendo that is based entirely on her name being Christmas. It's really funny. Anyway.
But we're not watching the Bond films out of order.
No, we're not.
So
It just means we have to watch 20 more of them before Christmas.
Oh, gosh. Alrighty. I'm saving a particular Christmas film for you, Grumpy Cat.
Okay, I'll watch that.
Okay, good.
Fair enough.
Good. Alright, so today we watched You Only Live Twice.
You Only Live Twice.
The what Bond film?
Fifth
Boom.
Fifth Bond film.
1967.
1967 had a budget of $10.3 million.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And brought in like $110 million at the box office. So major success, obviously, like all the Bond films have been.
Well, and I don't know if that trend actually continues, but to this point, that is definitely the case. So, watch, don't watch.
Watch.
All right. I would agree. I actually want to say that this has been my favorite Bond.
You and I giggled quite a lot during this film. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. The Bond films are meant to be tongue-in-cheek and funny. But this one was just so much of that. And there were some we were laughing at jokes, but we were also laughing at things that were done poorly or just wrong or ridiculous or whatever. So, but the movie is still worth a watch because of that.
Yeah.
It's not worth a watch because it's, important to the history of cinema. It's worth a watch because it's entertaining and you will laugh. You'll laugh at something in this film.
And it's not one of those it's so bad it's good films because it is a completely competent film.
Right.
There are just moments that make you laugh.
And it was the 60s and they, had some different views than we have now, especially as it pertains to foreign, non-Western cultures. This is the first Bond film where we've really been exposed to the British ideas of the Orient.
Yes. How many times does he say Domo Arigato?
Like a lot.
Yes. So I will say this. It has a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes. And it has a runtime of 1 hour and 56 minutes. It was in color.
Like all the other Bond films, which were also in color.
No, this was the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right.
We've just forgot to mention that in the previous 4, that they were all black and white.
Yeah, well, they did a great job colorizing them, so, hey.
Yeah.
All right. The 5th of the James Bond series, Secret Agent 007, Sean Connery, is sent to Japan to investigate his cat-loving, volcano-headquartered arch-nemesis and Spectre's head man, Blofeld, who is engaged in an elaborate enterprise to steal both Russian and American spaceships. And each side is blaming the other. It appears that Spectre's plan is to provoke World War III so that it can take control of the world, based on a novel by Ian Fleming.
It's interesting that you say that, because this is actually the next thing I wanted to bring up. So, good segue. It's based on the novel by Ian Fleming. Here's the thing. It was almost completely different from the novel.
Do they share a title?
They share a title.
Okay.
And they share the names of characters and some settings. And other than that, they are completely different. And this is the first time they did that for a Bond film. This is also the movie, I believe this is the movie that is made closest to the publication of the book. Because this came out in 1967, the book came out in 1964.
Okay.
So Ian Fleming wrote this book after previous Bond films had been made. It's interesting. But so the screenplay, fun fact, screenplay for this film, which, just basically made up the entire plot, was written by Roald Dahl, who, if you're not familiar, is British authors, regarded as one of the best British writers of all time. Mostly for children. He's really famous for writing children's books. James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Fantastic Mr. Fox, Matilda, BFG, Twits, George's Marvelous Medicine. All that is Roald Dahl. And he wrote the screenplay for this, very loosely based on Ian Fleming's book.
Huh.
He was also a World War II fighter ace.
Really?
Yeah.
Much like the... No, not much like the guy who wrote The Little Prince, was shot down somewhere.
I actually didn't know that. But...
somewhere in the Atlantic or Mediterranean. But anyway, that's interesting.
Anyway, yeah. So this film is it's the first one where they really took a lot of creative license with the source material, in the sense of they just completely tossed out the source material except for the names of some characters. Because this is like you mentioned in the synopsis, this is when you're finally introduced to number one, Spectre's head.
Yeah.
You've seen him before from, the chest down, petting his cat, sitting in his thing. He's always been anonymous, but you're actually introduced to him in this movie. They show his face, and he says his name, and stuff like that. And so they took that from the film. They took the fact that the plot was set in Japan. I said from the film. I meant from the book. The fact that it was set in Japan, they took that from the book. Pretty much other than that, it's an entirely original story original screenplay by Roald Dahl.
I do feel like it fit with the rest of the Bond films we've seen so far, except it was a little bigger.
Yeah, well, and I think definitely the budget has to do with that. But also the filming on location, which is not a thing that they've done heavily in previous Bond films. This film, the plot of this film is set in Japan, and they filmed pretty heavily in Japan.
We didn't really see that outside of the first film filming in Jamaica quite a bit.
Yeah, well, and then there's in Goldfinger, there are several scenes that are filmed in Miami.
That aren't.
Yeah, but they were mostly B-roll, just aerial shots of Miami. They only filmed on location in Miami for 5 days for Goldfinger. So it's
there was a little bit of on location shooting in Thunderball.
Right. But yeah, this is the first time that they had a really huge budget, $10.3 million.
No, that's not a lot of money, especially then.
And compared to previous Bond films. And so, they're just more on location filming. So it did really feel like a big film. It's the fifth one in the franchise. It's also, you mentioned this when we were getting ready to do this, but it's the first one where there was kind of a big gap of time between the last one and this one. The other ones were filmed or released in consecutive years, and this one had a 2-year gap.
One thing, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong here, but the first film had a budget of $1 million. Second film had a budget of $2 million. Third film had a budget of $3 million. Fourth film had a budget of $5 million.
I think so, yeah.
So doesn't this have more of a budget than all the previous films, just like the fourth film had more of a budget than all the previous films?
Right.
And it really, like you said, it does show there's only one really jarring green screen effect. And there's a ton of extras.
Right.
Which is a really
yeah, there
big
are a
deal.
ton of extras. A lot more special effects, and like I feel like a lot of that is sort of the nature of this film being kind of about peripherally about like a space conflict. They like showed a lot of rockets launching and stuff being in space, and like you could tell that the budget was there for them to do it. I mean, the technology didn't exist. Like, it looks hokey, but it's 1967. I mean,
It was pretty good work for miniatures. I'm going
Right.
to assume it was miniatures,
it probably was miniatures.
but it really doesn't look like it's miniature. I don't know. They did a really good job.
They did a
with
pretty good job with it.
I think particularly the base in the volcano that
Right.
had to be mostly miniature. I hope.
Right.
Did they really build this thing?
Yes and no. So, in addition to filming on location in Japan, the vast majority of the Bond films are going to be filmed at a studio in London. So they probably
Yeah.
did build this studio set mostly.
Okay.
And this is a film in the first one of these that you and I did. I was talking about Ken Abrams, who is the production designer for like the vast majority of the Bond films, and I said something to the effect of like he's the reason that we like associate supervillains with having like hidden bases inside volcanoes. This film is where that quote comes from, because the supervillain has a base literally inside a volcano.
Yeah.
This is the thing that like sort of, again, like we've seen this over and over and over, but just establishing the tropes in like spy thrillers that all come from Bond. Everything is based on Bond. We also get the tactile neck in this one.
This is true.
Shout out to Archer.
But it was very, very tourniqueted.
Yeah,
Truncated.
truncated. It wasn't a high neck, but it
Yeah.
was definitely a turtleneck, and it
This
was
is true.
definitely tactical, as we will discuss later.
So let's talk about our cold open. Bond talking about how Asian
yeah.
women taste.
Jesus. Yeah, the first line in the film just kind of sets us off, and then we just kept laughing pretty much the whole way through.
Oh man. You know, I'm not
Yeah,
one that's
so-
made uncomfortable by this stuff,
so-
but that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, so
Go for it.
Jesus. I can't even like gather myself because that line is so terrible. It's literally the first line he says in the film.
Why do Chinese girls taste different?
Yeah.
And then she responds,
She
do we
says
taste bad?
No, she says like, do we taste better? And he says, no, not better, just different.
You gotta make it very clear.
Jesus, this film has so much racism in it. Just so much casual racism that's just founded on the English imperialism of the 60s.
I would say that, you know, most of it was really benign. It was, like you said, in an Englishman's view of what Japan is, except for two things. My own personal thing, where I did not consider I found it literally laughable that the UK would be considered important.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That comes
okay.
up later, but
Well, I mean, it's the same time. So there's sort of the conflict in the film is that you see an American space
yeah.
capsule being captured by some
Foreign space
unidentified flying object.
Yes.
It's a UFO. And then you're shown a diplomatic summit where the United Kingdom is acting as an arbitrator between the USSR and the United States.
That's more reasonable, actually. The way I received it was that the UK was on the same playing field as the USA.
Well, I mean,
it is post-war.
It's probably the way it's presented, but they are sitting in between the United States and the Soviet Union.
Okay,
so
that's fair enough.
My takeaway was that they were acting as the arbitrator, but then it is shown pretty obviously that like the British think they're on the same page as the United States and the Soviet Union, because like the United States accuses Russia of doing it. The Russians said, we don't know anything about it. Like, stop blaming us or whatever. And then the British guy sort of interjects and says, we don't think we find this claim of it being the Russians unsubstantiated. Our sensors show it landed in the Sea of Japan. It's probably the Japanese. And then the scene just ends, as if the United Kingdom has the final say in that room.
Well, and so that actually leads us into the only part of, negligent... I'm trying to think of the word for when you're being racist and disparagingly so, but not because you're trying to be mean, but because you're thoughtless.
Yeah, it's just casual racism. This is just institutionalized Imperial United Kingdom thoughts about the Orient. This is when the United Kingdom still had control of Hong Kong, and
I'm just saying most of it was, like you said, an Englishman's interpretation of Japan at the time, and most of it isn't too far off the boot. It's just that they're trying to make it easy for, American and British audiences to grasp. But the concept that they are so, just completely convinced that the Japanese could not have a space program.
Oh, yeah. That is
what
the
I'm
other
saying
thing, too.
was, the only bad thing.
So the next scene... Or the scene when Bond is talking to M. Well, hold on. There's a scene before that.
We have so much to talk about before
we get there. But yeah, that is... Yeah.
That's the only part where I was like...
Or Bond says something like, are the Japanese capable of launching a ship into space? And M just nonchalantly goes, nah, we don't think so.
Now, I would like to believe it's because Japan was still being occupied at this time. Technically you could say they're still being occupied today. But, so I'd like to believe that that's what it is, but it probably was more that they just didn't think the Japanese... They
probably just didn't think the Japanese, yeah.
But let's go back.
Okay.
Beginning. Bond tells the Chinese woman she tastes funny.
Then she closes the Murphy bed with him still inside.
And just goons.
Right, yeah, just goons.
Goons shoot him up. And, It's confirmed James Bond is dead. Mm-hmm. And they roll him out in a
They roll the opening credits.
Yes. Disappointing. What did you think of the Bond opening credits this time?
At this point, they're all the same.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they are. It's a girl, and they're doing different special effects on it, and there's some hokey song written that awkwardly works in the movie title. Literally, the first line of the song is "You Only Live Twice," and it's just, they're all the same.
I don't know. I think this one was particularly subpar.
That's fine.
I think that the special effect they worked into it, which is this Asian style, what do you call it? Umbrella?
Yeah.
Design, this motif. I think that was wanting. There should have been a lot more. I'm going to go full into this and say there should have been paper lanterns and dragons and all this Chinese stuff that doesn't belong. And, there should have been, I guess actually you could make the argument that Chinese stuff does belong because it starts off in China. So, there should have been a lot more than just this umbrella thing. That they had going on. Secondly, I don't know, the woman dancing was weird. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's in all of the Bond openings.
Yeah, but not in all the Bond openings are they weird. Just in this one and the first one. Okay, so I guess we're up to 3 of the 5.
Yeah.
And then the...
From Russia with Love was clearly above and beyond.
Yeah, that one was good. But what was the one? Thunderball. Thunderball was the one with the little flutter kicks.
The flutter kicks.
Oh, man, I can't get over the flutter kicks.
Anyway, So we come back from the opening credits to a burial at sea.
Yeah.
And you're shown a newspaper that has Bond's picture and it says British naval commander killed or whatever. So it's Bond's funeral. They dump him off the side. And then two scuba divers go pick up the
corpse. A couple of frogmen pick up the corpse.
And bring it to a submarine, and then they open it, and it's Bond in full naval dress uniform.
And what does he say?
He says, permission to come aboard.
Yes, he does. I love that.
And then, so inside this submarine in Hong Kong territorial waters is the MI6 mobile headquarters, apparently, because Moneypenny has an office or a reception desk, and then in front of M's office, which has a fantastic accessory.
Well, the layout is the same as in all the other films.
It's the exact same as in like the actual MI6 headquarters in all the other films.
But thank you for letting me have the punchline.
Yeah.
This man in his submarine has a fireplace.
Yep. There's a fireplace in M's office in the submarine.
I desperately want to know if that's a thing.
It can't be.
I know that the Typhoon class submarines from the Soviets had saunas and swimming pools.
Okay, but those are like massive submarines, right?
Yeah, and those don't require chimneys.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, no, it was weird. But let's talk real quickly about James Bond's naval career. Is it real? Is MI6 under the Navy? Do we know this? Is this a thing?
we have no idea. You want me to look it up?
I do want you to look it up.
Okay.
Because I've always been under the impression that spies have to serve in a military branch, at least in the past. You know, they had to be Army, Navy, Marines, Air Corps, Air Force. I didn't think it was until way later that we got things that were truly like, you know, an independent MI6 or a truly independent CIA, where the operatives are their own, like, equal branch, as it were, of the armed forces. Actually, that's a really interesting question. Do CIA people get veterans benefits? One could argue that they're belligerents in service of their country.
I don't know.
If SS men can get stipends for being a veteran, then CIA people should be able to.
Jesus.
That's actually an interesting question. I know they have a CIA memorial, but
so it seems like MI6, according to Wikipedia, MI6 was originally split into naval and army sections.
okay.
So, yeah, apparently, and the Admiralty of the United Kingdom was sort of the chief of MI6 in the beginning, I guess. So, yeah, I would say that it's plausible that Bond's
military
career, or at least that it's plausible that a cover they would use is for him being an actual naval officer.
But this was pretty above and beyond, because M and Moneypenny
are all wearing naval uniforms as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It was interesting.
I mean, it's possible. It's never been mentioned before in the films.
Yeah, and it wasn't actually expressly mentioned here, except that someone says, show this officer to... I don't even think he says to the captain. I think he says
he should show him out, like out of the room.
Yeah. But he calls him an officer.
Right, and on the newspaper that it shows you that Bond is dead or whatever, it says like British Naval Commander.
Yeah.
So like he's a commander in the British Navy.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that's interesting. I find that really fascinating, too, that you'd publish the death of a spy.
Right.
So, anyway.
Although, this is a thing we can talk about, too, in Bond films, is that Bond just goes around telling everyone who he is.
Yeah.
So, like, you're right, it's weird that you'd publish the death of a spy, but in universe, it doesn't seem that out of character. Like, literally everyone already knows who James Bond is and that he works for MI6, except for when it's convenient that they don't know that.
One thing I just want to talk about as we're talking about the publishing of spies' deaths, this is unfortunately a true event, though do forgive me, dear listener, if the facts of this event are incorrect. I got it from a Russian TV show. Anyway, a number of years back, there were a couple of British spies that were bugging the Kremlin. This was like recently, like in 2010 or 11 or so. And they went missing. And I remember that in normal news channels, they were talking about spies going missing. And I'm like, why would you talk about spies going missing?
Right.
Anyway, like a day later or so, the Russian news outlet published a thing saying how sorry they were that the British agents found themselves in a situation with the mob and died. And I feel bad for these agents, of course, but it's just kind of funny that the Russians were so blunt about, yeah, we killed them, you know?
Right.
But anyway.
All right, so Bond gets unburied at sea and then goes to Japan.
Well, key thing here. He does indeed throw his hat.
Throws his hat. He does do that.
Gets it on the hat rack. And Moneypenny's code word thing. The code phrase. Yeah. She says, you need to say it back to me to make sure. And the code is, I love you. And so that was kind of funny. The other thing of note was how she asks, did he sleep with the Chinese woman?
Yeah.
And he says no. Which we found that he lies about sleeping with women a lot.
That is the first of two instances in this film in which he lies to a woman about sleeping with another woman.
Indeed. So, and she says something like, a pity, she will never know. It's also implied that that woman was a British agent.
Yeah.
Because they said...
Well, yeah, because he's faked his death and she was implicit in the plot to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
Right.
So, yeah, they end up in Japan.
Goes to Japan and to watch sumo.
Yes.
Which is sort of the first heavy-handed attempt to expose the Western audience to Japanese culture in the film.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it lingers on this fight for a while.
Yeah, you're shown, like, a lot of the sumo.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to watch. It's an interesting sport. But,
we were actually even curious if it comes outside Japan.
Right, which we didn't look up.
We didn't look that up.
Whatever.
We're always prepared. So, yeah, there's this whole scene in the sumo fight, and Bond has to tell some random woman...
Some random Asian woman that's just creepily sitting next to him for, like, a good, like, couple minutes while they're both watching sumo, and he keeps, like, looking shifty eyes at her.
And his opening words to her are...
I love you. But he doesn't say it like... He doesn't just lean in and say, like, I love you, like a normal colloquial thing. He, like, really enunciates it, like, I love you.
Well, that might be something that you kept bringing up through the film about Sean Connery not knowing how to act because of the situation he was in. I noticed when they were rolling the opening credits that there were 2 people credited with dubbing editor. And I'm like, oh God. And then you picked up on that throughout the whole film.
Yeah, so let me clarify that. It's not that Sean Connery doesn't know how to act. It's that, I mean... The situation that Sean Connery finds himself in is not easy for an actor. Basically what happened in this film is any character who is not British or American is overdubbed. So all of the Asian characters, which is most of them in the movie because it's set in Japan, are dubbed. But Sean Connery spends most of the movie interacting with those people. And so I, probably a little more than halfway through the film, just had this revelation of just going, it must be so difficult for him to have to say lines to people who don't speak the language that he's saying lines to and can't say lines back to him. Like, you can't have a dialogue. And even when you brought up the idea of maybe they're saying them out phonetically, because their mouths are moving in at least a somewhat of an approximation of the English words.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't look like they're speaking Japanese with English dubbed over it. It looks like they're speaking English. Maybe they're saying it, but still, like, even if that's the case, those people aren't actually comprehending the dialogue that's happening. And I have, like, sort of a new appreciation for Sean Connery's ability to make these movies while not being able to speak to people on set.
Yeah, it is rather impressive, actually. Though, I do hate to say it, Chris, you didn't set me up for one of my favorite jokes from this movie.
Which one?
The one where you said, it's gotta be hard acting against people who don't speak English. And I responded.
Oh, yeah, you said Sean Connery doesn't speak English. Yeah. That's true.
But anyway.
Sean Connery speaks Scottish.
Indeed.
What time does Sean Connery arrive at Wimbledon? 10-ish. You know what's funny is that this is funny coming back to these movies I've been watching when Sean Connery's like really young, and he doesn't really have as much of the accent as he did when he got older. Like, if you watch what's the movie with all the characters? League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh yeah.
His accent is so thick in that movie. And it's really not in these comparatively, but yeah.
I just want to relay an anecdote to our dear listeners. I was once in Berlin, and I came across a couple Scotsmen, and they proceeded to speak Scottish at me. I could not understand them. So we pulled some random German woman off the street. They spoke French to her, and she spoke German back to me. That's how we communicated.
Yeah, because Scottish people don't speak English. Shout out to Scottish people Twitter on Reddit.
Anyway, so they go through that scene, and then we actually get one of our first looks at the Bond car of the film, kind of.
Yeah,
the Japanese Bond car of the film.
Japanese Bond car. It's the first film that was filmed in Japan, so they used a Japanese car. It's a Toyota 2000 GT. It's a pretty cool looking car. That Bond never drives.
Yeah, two things about this. I wanted to say that Bond is driven twice by women in this film, and neither times he objects, which I just thought was interesting based on his last encounter. As well as, I thought that was a Miata at first, but it is not. It
sort of looks like it. It looks like... It honestly looks a lot like the modern Miata.
Yeah, in a way.
But I think part of the reason is because they had to modify this Toyota 2000 GT, and what's interesting is that the production team didn't modify it. Toyota modified it because that's how badly they wanted it in the film. This was the first quote unquote supercar that Toyota ever made. They only made like 350 of them.
Wow.
But here's the thing: is that Toyota is a Japanese car company. They're making cars for Japanese people, and it is pretty clearly demonstrated throughout this film that Sean Connery is a lot taller than the average Japanese person. And so Toyota literally modified this car. The 2000 GT was never intended to be a convertible. It was just a two-door coupe hardtop. But they made this one a convertible specifically for this film so that Sean Connery could use it.
But gosh, did it look good. Oh my...
Oh, it looked great.
That's probably...
It's this great cream color, and...
It's probably why he didn't drive, by the way.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Because they couldn't adjust the controls.
Yeah. He was almost certainly too tall to drive that car.
That's actually really fascinating, now that we look at it that way.
Right.
So what's kind of cool about this car, too, is it's, like, clearly from, like, the Japanese version of Q Branch. It's got all sorts of tech features in it, like a Sony TV.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting because other than Bond's Walther, that they never mention until this film that it's PPK, they just say, you know, one of those little Walthers beforehand. This was the first time there was product placement for a Bond gadget that was fairly obvious. Like, okay, you got the Aston Martin, sure. You got the Sunbeam, the Tiger.
Yeah, Sunbeam Tiger.
But it's not a Sunbeam Tiger, though.
Right.
It was, what was it?
It's the Sunbeam Alpha.
Alpha.
That's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was wondering if the company was Sunbeam or if the company was Tiger.
Yeah, Sunbeam is the company.
So, other than those cars, and one then could arguably say the Lincolns and all those, we haven't had, like, front and center product placement of a spy gadget.
Right, until this
Sony,
TV set that's in the car, Sony.
Which is shown a lot because a lot of things are conveyed through that little TV.
Right, and they're conveyed in an interesting way.
And we'll get to that.
All right.
But first, we need to get to... She takes him to meet the man that he was supposed to meet here in Japan. An Englishman who he instantly assumes is trying to kill him. He pulls a gun on the guy, takes his cane, smacks him in the leg, and the guy says, "Lucky you picked the right side," you know, so...
Yeah.
And they go on and on about things for a while. And then eventually...
he's killed mid-sentence by a knife that was... Well, you don't actually see it. You don't know if it was thrown or stabbed through this paper wall, because all buildings in Japan have paper walls. And just stops mid-sentence. Stops dead silent, which is, you know, how you react if you're stabbed in the back.
Yeah, and the guy just drops dead.
Yep.
Bond
crashes through the paper wall, trying to chase down whoever it was.
And does.
Yeah.
And beats the guy down and takes his outfit.
Sure does.
Puts on a mask and a hat.
Takes his little... Jesus. This is another institutionalized racism. Takes his little, like, surgical masks. Yeah, I know, but this is... I know they do that. But, like, come on.
It was unnecessary.
It was so unnecessary.
It was not implied that the man was sick or that he was trying to avoid pollution or... Yeah, I get it. But it was funny. Because, yes, of course the Japanese man is wearing a surgical mask.
Right. So Bond takes his hat, his, like, overcoat, trench coat, which we didn't look up the difference between the two of those.
No, we did not.
We had a long talk about what the difference between an overcoat and a trench coat was in the middle of that scene. And his surgical masks, and gets in the car. There was a getaway driver.
Yep.
Gets in the car, and the getaway driver doesn't notice it's Bond, which admittedly, like, it's night. He's hunched over. He's pretending to be hurt.
Yeah.
Just gets in the back seat. And the getaway driver's, like, talking to him in Japanese, and Bond talks back to him in Japanese because Bond speaks Japanese because he took a first in Oriental languages at Cambridge. That's a quote from earlier in the movie.
Yes, it
that
is.
He says to Moneypenny. So Bond speaks Oriental languages, all of them.
You know what would actually...
Cantonese, Mandarin, Japanese,
Korean. It would disappoint me if he couldn't, to be honest. He is an international spy.
Right.
He should be able to speak every major language. Has it been shown he can speak French? He has to have shown that he can speak French.
He hasn't really interacted with a lot of French people yet.
Yeah. One thing I will say about this film, there's two things I want to say before we get too far from... No subtitles, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, no subtitles, which was interesting because in this film, more than any other, there was a lot of foreign languages being spoken. There was a lot of Russian being spoken. Yep. There was a lot of Japanese being spoken. And yeah, there's literally no subtitles.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty cool.
You can sort of get the gist sometime, when the Russian guy yells Amerikansk or something like that.
That was a
Like,
point where
you're like, okay, I think we can pretty obviously tell what he's talking about. But yeah, other than that, like, even Sean Connery's lines, like, Sean Connery is shown speaking Japanese, and you're like, you have no idea what he's saying unless you actually speak Japanese, which I don't.
Nor do I, but we could pick up on
We could pick out Domo Arigato. I think everybody could pick that one out.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention, because it is a plot point going forward, is that the Soviets are preparing to launch a spacecraft like very soon, and the Americans are.
Oh right, yeah. There is a sort of an implied sense of urgency that Bond has to figure out what's going on quickly because
it could escalate things.
Right.
Yeah, especially if and that happens. You know, if the Soviet capsule gets destroyed, which it appears to. One thing we didn't mention about the American capsule getting destroyed or captured is that this Voyager-esque spacecraft with this maw opens up and eats the American space capsule, and there's an astronaut on a spacewalk that just gets
cut loose.
Yeah, just lost in space.
Yep.
But anyway, but the cosmonauts, they stayed inside.
They did. They sure did. Yeah, so Bond is driven back to base, which you see is like the Japanese villain's base.
Yeah.
Which is
chemical company.
Yeah, some type of chemical engineering company headquarters or something like that. And the driver of the car carries Bond into this building, into an elevator, up several stories, and places him on the couch. Then takes his hat and mask off, and only at that point notices that it's not his Japanese associate who done the murder of the British guy. Which, how do you not notice? It's
he doesn't notice that he's like a good foot taller.
He's a good foot taller. He didn't look at his face when he took him out of the car. Like, okay, yeah, he's wearing a surgical mask over his mouth and nose, but like, you didn't notice that it was a white guy, not an Asian guy. Like, they make a pretty obvious scene later in the movie about the shape of their eyes being different because
it's true.
That's another thing that you had to know. Just casual racism.
I can't help but keep thinking they taste different.
Yeah. Jesus. Yeah, like, how does this Japanese guy not notice that?
I don't know. Particularly, like, I would imagine the weight should be a huge thing. I know this sounds weird, and I am not trying to make this a race thing, but the guy should smell different.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, he would totally smell different.
Yeah, because one would assume Bond only wears the best colognes.
One would assume Bond wears colognes that are marketed at men who can't afford the best colognes. That's the kind of cologne I assume that James Bond wear.
But he would probably be wearing a cologne that would be noticeably different to a Japanese man.
A British cologne.
Yeah.
Of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that kind of funny because the guy is all up in Bond as he's carrying him up that elevator and all that jazz.
So anyway, he takes off his mask and they proceed to have a fight scene, which is a great fight scene. So
far, the best hand-to-hand fight scene, at least in my opinion.
I agree. I think everything about it, though, I think the way it was filmed, the way it was cut, the choreography, I don't think there's a better Bond fight that we've seen. Even though the fight with Oddjob from Goldfinger is sort of regarded as like one of the better Bond fight scenes, I liked this one better, and you said the same thing.
Yeah. And because a part of it is the editing is pretty great. There isn't any sped up footage, which is pretty cool. Bond uses his favorite weapon, a chair,
twice.
Yeah, it was just and he even used a couch.
Yes.
So all that was pretty cool. He ends up defeating his foe by using a statue that may or may not be a continuity error, because later on
I'm pretty sure it is. It's not important enough that they like if it was like so Bond hits the guy with the statue and the statue breaks, and then later in the movie you see that statue again intact. And if it was like a major plot point, I think they would have fixated on it, being like, oh, that thing is now intact, here's a camera shot of it. It's not. It's just intact when he goes back to the place the next day, which is definitely just a continuity error.
Well, the best part about that is from some angles it's not there, and some angles it is.
Right.
I also wanted to... remember when I said there was two things? I have to admit, the coming up with the Russian capsule thing was a cop-out, but it was an important thing to mention. The thing I wanted to mention was that this British man with a fake leg serves him a martini, stirred, not shaken, the way you like it.
Yeah.
Which was weird. Bond just goes with it.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? Explain, Chris.
Listen, everybody knows how James Bond takes his martinis.
I don't know. It was just weird. Isn't it shaken, not stirred?
Yeah, shaken, not stirred. That's what he said.
No, he said stirred, not shaken.
Did he?
Yes. And he actually stirs it. It's shown on screen him stirring it. That's why I thought it was so weird. And Bond just goes with it.
I just kind of assumed he said shaken, not stirred.
No, he said stirred, not shaken.
I am going to look up... I'm going to look up the script now and see what he says.
Yeah, I thought that was really weird because I expected, based on previous Bond films, that there would be a corny, like, cut to a close-up of Bond's face with an eyebrow raise. Like, he's not going to deny a martini, but that he, thought it was funny that the guy got it wrong. And I think that was supposed to be part of our clue that the guy wasn't to be trusted. Like, I thought they were building up to him being a spy. Now, it was also at this point when I said to Chris, my favorite thing about these Bond films is I don't know the plots to any of them. Not even the ones I've seen. So, it is kind of cool to get to go through these Bond films for the first time and have it all kind of laid out for you and actually have the mystery. Because I think that's a big part of spy thrillers is the mystery and solving things. So yeah, when the Brit said, just like you like it, stirred not shaken, I thought to myself, wow, this guy's bad news. This guy's fighting for the wrong side, as it were. He's a Spectre agent. He was gonna use his knife boots and get his kicks.
You are exactly right. He says, that's stirred, not shaken. That was right, wasn't it? And Bond says, perfect.
And that's the only martini he drinks. He even refuses one later.
He does.
Which is weird.
He refuses one in favor of sake, which we'll get to.
Yeah. So anyway, we have that excellent fight scene. Bond then pulls out a gadget that is unexplained. And I actually have to say that that's one of my favorite things about spy movies, is the spy just using a gadget. It shouldn't be a Deus Ex Machina. It shouldn't just save the day. But I love the concept that, yeah, of course a spy is going to have, something that can read the tumblers.
Right, yeah, it's a safe-cracking device of some kind. And it, just reads the tumblers in the safe. And then he opens the safe and sets off the building alarm.
And he gets a shopping list for a naval ship.
Yes.
That's what's in the thing. He takes it and leaves a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Which I totally expected Bond to just take and pocket
the money.
All those billions of yen. And so, thousands of yen probably at that time, before hyperinflation.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, he takes that, he gets outside and
is picked up by the Bond girl in the Toyota.
Yeah, he is.
Then there's a car chase.
There is a car chase.
Which is one of the two that I recall uses of the green screen. Like kind of obvious uses of the green screen.
I don't think there is a car chase.
Yeah, they're totally chased.
The cool one, right? That's not this one. Because she says, I'm going to take you someplace safe.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Because we haven't been introduced yet to him yet. So she says, I'm going to take you someplace safe. And then he says, stop the car. And she starts running.
No. He says, slow down. So she pulls over, stops, and gets out and starts running away.
As women are wont to do from Bond.
Yeah. So then he corners her at the foot of a staircase and then walks through a tunnel and gets dropped into a chair.
Yeah, he gets dropped in through the stainless steel, tube into...
slide thing into a reclining chair.
Into a reclining chair. Which, by the way, we then see the same camera angle we just saw on TV screens.
Right.
And this is when we meet... Oh, gosh. Very stereotypical Japanese name.
Hold on, I've got the thing right in front of it.
The guy went by the codename Tiger. He's supposed to be like the Japanese James Bond.
He's the head of the Japanese Secret Service, Tiger Tanaka.
Tanaka. Yeah. It made me think of Halo 4. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so, yeah, we finally meet him, and he seems like a pretty chill dude. He shows James Bond sliding around to himself.
Right. He tells Bond he loves him.
Yes!
Because that's the code word.
That is the code word. How do you feel about me? You? I love you.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're best buds.
Yeah. Which, fair enough. They're like top spy people, It's... Although I hate to say it, this guy actually seems to have the skills, whereas Bond has the luck.
Yeah. Bond gets lucky a lot in this film.
Less so than others, though. Less so than Dr.
Yeah,
No.
but there's still a lot of it.
There is. And so he says to Bond, the way that we get out is a lot more dignified than the way you came in.
Yeah, which literally anything is more dignified than sliding down a thing and...
And Bond basically says that to the guy.
Yeah.
He's like, well, it would have to be.
Yeah.
So they leave, and there's a guy in the elevator for some reason.
Yeah, just a armed guard in the elevator, something in the underground headquarters of the Japanese Secret Service.
Indeed. And so I think then the next scene is going back to the industrial building.
No, the next scene is they go to Tanaka's house.
Oh, God, they go to Tanaka's house. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Chris.
At which point you were exposed to more casual racism by the British. Not racism so much, just like complete and total misinterpretation of Japanese culture.
See, this is one of the problems is I can't speak too much on this because I don't have a firm grasp of Japanese culture, so I can't say what is and is not.
Well, suffice it to say that they went pretty overboard with this scene. So, point is, they're going to a spa, and Tanaka says a line that is more or less, in Japan, there's only two things you have to know. It's never do anything for yourself that someone else can do for you, and the second thing is men come first and women come second. And Bond says something like, well, yeah, that's the way it should be, or I could get used to this, or something.
He says, I think I'll retire here.
So, the two of them are in these, hot springs or whatever, spa type thing, and there's 4 scantily clad Japanese women.
I'm not entirely certain one of them wasn't painted down.
Bathing him. Yeah, well, that's another thing we can talk about later. Because that becomes pretty relevant. And then Tanaka says something like, which of these women do you want to massage you? And Bond says, I'll have this one or whatever. And then cut to the woman massaging him. And then the original Japanese chick, the first contact that he made, who turns out is Tanaka's assistant, switches with the girl who was massaging him, and then they have sex.
So originally I thought, well, do they have sex?
Yep, sure do.
Okay. So we need to verify this. So what I'm curious about
Is there a woman in the film? Bond had sex with her.
what I'm curious about is originally I thought they paint there's this woman who's ambiguously possibly white. It doesn't really matter, but what I'm curious about now is, were some of these interior scenes shot on set in England and they just couldn't get enough Asians?
Probably.
And I'm wondering if that's what it is, because I know with Game of Thrones that's a big thing where they have to brown people for a lot of the Game of Thrones things, because there just frankly aren't that many brown people in Ireland. So
right,
where they shoot a lot of the stuff. So yeah,
that is probably true.
So instead of it being like a as you would say, like a casual racist thing, it was probably for need of not having the people.
Right.
But anyway, I just thought it was interesting.
Bond has sex with a woman. What else is new? Then they've established. During his meeting with Tanaka, they've established that Bond is going to pose as some other business person and go meet with the head of the chemical company that he was taken to the night before.
Yes.
That he stole the stuff from. So Bond goes there and meets...
Well, wait one moment. We forgot to mention that when he meets Tiger, he hands him the paper, and it's for butter and lox. And he goes, "What's lox?" And the guy says, "American for smoked salmon."
Yes, Bond does say that it's lox is American for smoked salmon.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I didn't think it was American. I frankly thought it was Yiddish.
That's casual racism.
Is it not Yiddish?
I don't think so. I don't think the word lox is Yiddish. It's
Uh,
just a thing that Jewish people eat a lot.
because it's labeled smoked salmon.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a Yiddish word.
I don't know.
So Bond goes to the company, goes back to the company, meets the head of the company, Mr. Osato.
Who then tries to give him champagne. It adds a sparkle to your day.
Right.
Bond
in the morning.
refuses a drink.
Bond refuses a drink, which the first and probably last time you ever see that.
Because it's too early in the day.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, okay. The American English word lox is derived from the Yiddish word for salmon. That word is not lox.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. The only Yiddish word I know for sure is kaput.
Mensch,
Mensch.
which is also a German word.
Well, that's the thing is, a lot of Germans can speak Yiddish,
Right.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's beside the point.
Anyway, and he meets the assistant to Mr. Osato, who is a redhead
I don't think naturally.
with like a French accent or something.
Yeah, she has some sort of accent. I'm going to say she's Eastern European. But
Definitely Eastern European.
because she has the Eastern European eyebrow thing going on.
Her name is Helga Brandt.
Interesting. Anyway,
German, maybe? It's never really established.
it frankly doesn't matter. I think she's actually supposed to
She's
be English.
not Japanese, which is funny to me that the assistant to this head of a Japanese chemical company is
Not Japanese.
not Japanese.
I always assumed that was a status thing, and to give Bond frankly, a white romantic interest.
Yeah, fair enough. So this woman is making googly eyes at Bond pretty much the whole time.
She's glaring at him.
She's making googly eyes at him.
Is that googly eyes?
Oh god, yeah.
It looked like she was about to be
Dude,
sick.
It's googly eyes because what happens in a later scene.
Well, yes.
She's
but
totally making googly eyes at him.
she's not.
Yeah, she is. And she has a great line in this scene about...
Well, you don't want to smoke.
Yeah, so hold on, back up. There's like several lines that lead up to this that set up this line. So she said, like, or one of the two of them asks Bond if he wants champagne. Bond says, it's too early in the morning, like, it's not good for you or your liver or something like that. And Mr. Osato says, it, like, adds something bright to your day, or makes your day bubbly, or whatever the heck.
And it was adds a sparkle to your day.
Yeah, and then she says, Dom Perignon, 59, are you sure? And Bond says, well, if you insist, definitely with that emphasis, like if she wants him to get drunk. Then they sit down. Mr. Osato is behind a desk and has an X-ray machine pointed at Bond so that he can see his gun.
And his desk is uber shiny, so all Bond sees is a reflection of himself, which I'm sure he appreciates.
Right,
and
obviously.
There is a camera with a gun above him, with a man suspiciously with crosshairs pointed.
Right. So they know Bond has a gun, so he's not who he's pretending to be, which is some English businessman with interest in chemical manufacturing in Japan, or something like that. Bond is smoking a cigarette while they're having this conversation. He's sitting in the thing, and Mr. Osato says something like, "You're making a mistake, or you're doing something dangerous right now, and you think it's going to be about the gun, and they're going to expose him." And then he says, "Smoking, like it's bad for your whatever."
I think he says it's bad for your chest.
It's bad for your chest, and then the assistant, Helga Brandt, who is rather well endowed.
And the shot shows that off.
Right. Says Mr. Osato appreciates a nice chest.
No.
Or a big chest. Or
healthy.
Healthy chest, that's what he said. Oh, man.
A healthy chest.
The whole scene just setting up a boob joke, which I love.
Which, a lot of Bond is about that.
Right.
As you've probably noticed, dear listener, based on our previous things, look at the posters. Every one of the posters is fairly, well, not everyone, but most of them are pretty hypersexualized.
Yeah.
There's actually one I didn't post here because I was a little uncomfortable with it, where it was for Goldfinger. It's a nude woman who, gold nude woman, but her lower half transitions into a gold bar with a Nazi eagle on it. And I didn't want to put that on YouTube with a swastika.
Yeah, that's not a good look.
I couldn't believe that there was a poster with a swastika on it.
Right.
But anyway.
So Bond leaves and Mr. Osato says, kill him.
Yep.
Helga makes a phone call to somebody down below. Mm-hmm. So then Bond is walking out of this building.
Oblivious to the world.
And there's a car rolling 1 mile an hour behind him. They got one guy driving and one guy leaning out the window with a machine gun. And we never mentioned her name, but the Japanese girl that he meets, his first contact, her name is Aki.
Yeah, I noticed
It's
that.
Tanaka's assistant. She drives up in the Toyota 2000 GT and says get down or something, and this henchman guy with the machine gun just sprays and prays and doesn't hit a goddamn thing.
No, he doesn't.
Which is Bond getting lucky once again.
Twice in the same moment.
Right.
Oh man.
He hops in the car. And this is the car chase.
Yes, this is the car chase. Second best car chase? Third best?
It's pretty good. There's a lot more scenes of the cars driving rather than the people in the cars. So, there's only one really gratuitous scene of Connery and Aki in the car, and she's, spinning the wheel, and it's clearly green screened. The rest of it actually shows the cars moving pretty good, and it's not sped up.
Yeah.
footage again, like we've seen before in Bond films where they did that. This they didn't do.
Is there any sped up footage in this film?
I didn't notice any.
I only noticed one tiny thing, but that just might have been my Xbox acting up, where it paused for a moment at the docks.
I actually noticed that twice. I actually think it may have either been that or the actual DVD.
Okay.
There were two scenes that I noticed that happened.
Where
There was like a slight pause. Yeah, so they I don't even remember how that ends. Like they just escape.
No, they don't.
They go to the
in
dock.
a helicopter.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's a great scene. Okay, so we mentioned earlier the great use of the Sony video camera. So they make a call to Tanaka. Tanaka sends this helicopter with a giant magnet hanging from the bottom of it. They pick up, the magnet flies over the car that's chasing them and picks it up. And then flies out over the Sea of Japan, I guess.
Yeah, I joked about that. Oh, are they just going to go drop him in the bay?
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. But here's the thing. So, Bond and Aki are watching this happen on their little spy gadget TV that's in the car, right?
Yep.
Where is the camera?
Well,
where is the camera? Because you're not shown the car being dropped from the perspective of the helicopter.
Which would make sense.
Which would make sense for Bond and Aki to see.
Yes.
You are, the viewer, the audience, is shown presumably the camera on another helicopter. And
backup.
And that is also what Bond sees. The exact same thing.
Yep.
Third person camera.
That is something that I find rather fascinating, is that throughout this film there's a lot of them just using film footage of the film in the film.
Right.
It's like Spaceballs.
Yeah. It is very Spaceballs.
But anyway, yeah, so that's how that car chase ends. They then go
They drive to the docks?
They go to the docks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the docks, there is probably my favorite fight scene.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It is great. And we see that Bond is fallible. Which I guess we've seen Bond be fallible before, but he misses a shot. You notice that?
He misses a shot at point blank range.
Yeah.
He's missed shots before, but he misses one literally point blank.
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing.
Which we thought was funny because he makes about the previous 5 or 6 were all kill shots.
Yeah, he's dropping people with a PPK single shots.
Right.
Like, he's making good hits, and then
misses the one from literally about 5 feet away while he's sitting still on a conveyor belt.
Yeah, sitting still relatively.
Yeah,
because they're both moving up the conveyor belt. But yeah, I don't know. It was just fascinating to me, this particular fight scene. It was almost like, what if James Bond was in a zombie apocalypse? Because people just swarm him.
Right.
And he's like putting them down. It was like a shot out of The Walking Dead.
Right. It was actually, I really liked this, like, the cinematography in this scene, where there is literally a scene of Bond running along the rooftops of this dock facility, warehouse type thing, and you're given this great, like, aerial shot, like, panning shot of all these people chasing him from behind, these other people coming up from front. He's, karate chopping and throwing people and hitting them with sticks or whatever, and there's never a jump cut in it. No. That was the thing I appreciated most about it, was like the whole thing was just filmed, choreographed that way.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was really, really well done. And then Bond jumps off a building twice.
Well, two things. I want to compliment this movie for its use of extras. We said it earlier in this, but seriously, the extras really make this. They were giving it their all.
Right, and there's tons of them.
Yeah.
Like, that was the thing about it. Like, there are 30 different people that Bond fights in this fight scene, or that are chasing him, or something in some capacity involved in this scene.
They're skilled extras too.
Right.
But anyway, you noticed something that I thought was particularly funny after you pointed it out about how Bond gets away from this horde of people on top of the building.
Yeah, so there's a door, and he runs towards it, and he's like, you don't really see it because, again, like, the aerial shot is sort of like a wide angle, and so you don't really see a lot of detail, but somehow Bond has appropriated, like, a bamboo staff from one of these people, and there's like a group of like 4 or 5 guys charging Bond, and he just turns around and throws the stick at them, and they all scatter. And Bond goes through this door and closes the door, and there's a guy right before the scene cuts. There's a guy with another bamboo staff just taking a swing at the closed door.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Pretty good. So Bond jumps off a building twice onto successively lower levels of this thing, like landing on packed stuff.
Those were pretty big leaps of faith.
Right. Twice. And so you think he sort of gets away, and then he's hit from behind and knocked out, captured.
Yeah. At which point, our villain, who was right there, our Japanese villain, he could just kill Bond right then and there. Why doesn't he?
Because that's never happened in a Bond film. Literally every single one of these films, the villain has Bond captured somehow and decides not to kill him just immediately. Because that's a James Bond trope.
Yeah. Anyway, so he gets captured and he wakes up in a room, presumably on a boat.
Yeah, it's sort of implied that it's on a boat. Yeah. I don't know if it's directly shown, but there are portholes. It's pretty obviously a boat.
And we're in the room with the redhead.
Yes, Helga Brandt.
Who has a whole set of plastic surgery things, which is actually really interesting foreshadowing.
Yeah. So she opens a drawer and you're shown all these sort of like scalpels and knives and tongs and instruments of torture. But that she specifically says this one that she pulls out is used for plastic surgery, like removing the skin, which they sort of do plastic surgery on Bond later, so...
It's also really interesting based on how she meets her end.
Yeah.
Because it's implied she enjoys filleting people.
Yes. That is true. We'll get there.
Yeah.
So Bond is tied to a chair, secured to a chair. Yeah. So she says, like, who are you working for? And he's still under his fake business cover or whatever. And then she, like, pulls out her little scalpel thing and says, don't make me use this or whatever.
Puts it in his pocket.
Puts it in his coat pocket and then just starts making out with him?
So...
And this is where the googly eyes thing comes from. Like, that's why I think it was googly eyes, because she's clearly physically attracted to him.
You're right. But more casual racism. Is that how Eastern Europeans do googly eyes?
I don't know, man. It must be.
No, it's not. I actually do know this.
No, but this is the first time in this movie where, like, it really goes off the rails, because like even the magnet thing with the car wasn't like out of the ordinary for a Bond film. But this is like, this woman doesn't know who Bond is. Yeah. Well, actually, she might.
She should. She doesn't.
Yeah.
She should know it's James Bond based on what we know about her later.
Right.
But it's implied she doesn't.
So this woman has already tried or made a call that he should be killed earlier. She's the one who makes the phone call to say, hey, he's leaving the building, go kill him. Then she's threatening him with a scalpel. Then he spins some BS about, oh, I'm a corporate spy. I want to know how they make their chemicals so I can steal it. And then she just starts making out with him, cuts him free, and presumably they have sex.
Not only presumably do they have sex, he takes the thing that she cut him free with, the flesh filleting thing, and cuts her dress off.
Oh, yeah, he cuts her dress off.
Why?
I don't know.
It happens.
Yeah. I guess. But, like, where does this come from?
Nowhere.
There's literally nothing
Yeah, it was
to suggest that, like...
there was anything going on there.
Right. She just, like, starts kissing him, and he's like, oh, I'm James Bond. Like, this happens.
Yeah, women just have sex at him.
Yeah. That's Bond girl trope.
Remember, Sean Connery just plays Sean Connery.
Right, yeah. This is just how Sean Connery exists.
So, yeah, she does that, and then our next scene is them on a plane.
Helicopter. It's a plane. No, you're right. It's a plane.
It's a plane. He's in the back seat tied up. She's pilot. Again, interesting thing. Like most Bond pilots.
No, he's not tied up. This is the thing. Because he spins some BS about, like, when I steal this process, they're going to give me a lot of money. I'll split it with you if you get me out of here. And she goes, all right. And then they have sex. And then they're shown on the plane. Like, presumably she's getting him out of there. Right? But then...
she never says all right.
Yeah, but they just have sex. Like...
she could just be using him.
She is, clearly, because what happens in this next scene is she, like, throws, like, a smoke bomb on the floor of this little tiny, like, 2-seater plane.
The most ineffectual way to kill someone.
Right, and then presses a button and some type of, like, tray table comes out and traps Bond's hands. And then she jumps out of the plane with a parachute, leaving the plane to... presumably crash land, but then Bond somehow works his hand free, karate chops the table, because we all know that Bond is great at karate chops. That's been established in previous films. And then crash lands the plane.
My favorite
but successfully, I mean, he gets out.
My favorite thing about that scene is she's parachuting, right? And you see the plane go off in the distance and come back.
They come back, yeah. It's...
And I was totally expecting it to kill her.
Right, same thing. Yeah, I was like, it's going to cut the lines of the parachute or something. But it doesn't.
It doesn't. The other thing is, hey, he did survive the crash landing, so...
Right, but... so, you're shown the plane landing, and the plane is smoking the whole time because she dropped, like, a smoke bomb or something, and that made the plane crash.
She also pushed some sort of lever that made the plane start producing smoke.
Yeah, something. I don't know. Whatever. Not important. Bond lands the plane and gets out, and literally as he's getting out, I was like, it's gonna explode, and not 1 second later, the plane explodes twice.
Yeah. So, I think this is when we get our visit from Q, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we get our visit from Q, and we get, like, the only use of trick photography in this movie. Everything else was real. There were no special effects in this film.
Even the parts in space.
They shot that for this film. It's amazing what you could do for a few $100,000 in the 60s. So anyway, we have Q and Q Branch assembling a microcopter that Bond has some lady name for.
Yeah. It doesn't say in the Wikipedia.
Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. He keeps calling it by some lady's name. And so, like, it's implied. I think they were trying to get us to believe that there was, like, a lady spy coming, when that's not at all what happens. Yeah. And no one's thinking that that's what's going to happen. Q then explains the microcopter, and the microcopter is shown being assembled. Through time lapse, but it's not time lapse. It would have been cooler if it was time lapse.
Yeah, it's literally like
stop motion. And the Japanese man doesn't trust it.
Right.
For some reason.
The Japanese woman doesn't trust it. Tanaka and Eki both say, don't use that thing. Use Tanaka's like, use one of my helicopters. And Bond's like, nah, it's fine. I've used this before. It's great.
I mean, in his defense, it does work out rather well for him.
Right.
Q explains everything.
All the gadgets.
And I think from the time we're introduced to the little helicopter, the time the helicopter's off the screen is less than 5 minutes, and everything about it is used.
Yep. It's, yeah.
So do you want to explain the helicopter fight scene? The worst car chase in all the Bond films.
It really is. So, the point of Bond having this helicopter is they figure out that there's an island where this ship... There was a photograph of a ship in the stuff that Bond stole from the chemical place.
Oh, God. Zoom in.
Yeah. There's a scene where so it's this photograph from like super far away, and Bond says like, "Can we zoom in?" or something, and it's just the classic like zoom in, and all of a sudden the resolution of the camera is increased infinity fold.
Not only that, but it's like super smooth and super fast on exactly what they wanted, even though they were
Right.
clear about what they wanted.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so bad.
I did actually think that it was pretty interesting, and it totally worked on me. As you know, I don't like violence against women in films or anything like that. I just find it uncomfortable. And so they set that up, that they just killed some random woman because of this photo. And they set that up, and they mention it a couple times.
Right.
To, like, make you feel bad. It worked on me. I feel for these fictional characters.
Anyway.
That we don't even see.
Yeah, that we don't even see. It's just mentioned that the woman who took this picture disappeared.
Yeah. They liquidated her.
Yeah. So, because of those photos, though, they know the ship that they're looking for, and then there were some, like, aerial photos. They tracked the ship to where it was going, so it's some random island. So Bond is taking the little microcopter to do reconnaissance of this island, and then all of a sudden there are 4 full-size helicopters chasing him.
Yep.
And he shoots them all down with the various gadgets that are equipped upon his microcopter.
The best part...
But then doesn't find anything. He specifically
Yeah.
says, like, there's nothing here. There's just, like, this tiny little fishing village. But I got shot down. I got chased down by all these helicopters, so there must be something here, but I didn't see anything.
The thing that's particularly funny about this is James Bond weapons have the capability of, one, stopping the helicopter dead in the middle of the air. They have no forward momentum.
Right.
They fall straight down. And then secondly, they have the ability to turn into unpiloted tiny models right before they explode.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, he has that whole adventure. He gets back. He returns.
They tell him not to go like directly to base. They say go to a different place and await further orders. And then it cuts to the cosmonauts getting captured.
Yeah. And the cosmonauts get captured intact. But what I wanted to point out was that the microcopter gets returned to Q Branch relatively undamaged.
Although it is shown that there are bullet holes in the tail. There's specifically a scene where it's shown that Bond gets shot up a little bit.
Yeah, but he returned it.
He returns everything. He just returns everything in extremely abused condition.
Trying to think if there's anything we've seen him specifically just throw out.
I don't think so. I mean, unless things are like specifically disposable.
The women.
Yeah, the women. That's true. Yeah, things that are specifically disposable.
Oh. Anyway. She's dead.
Jesus.
It's just now whenever I see a woman in these films, I expect them to be a meat shield. And you know what? Most of the time
they are, because it was the 60s and it's James Bond, and that's what the women are in the film for. Sex appeal, that's it. That's the only thing they're there for.
So anyway, at this point, are we introduced now to Tanaka's friends?
Yeah, the ninjas. More casual racism.
Well,
It's not very casual, it's just straight up racism.
I don't know. The Japanese had ninjas, you know, who knows?
In the 60s?
I mean, 1860s maybe, you know. I don't know about the 60s. I don't know much about Japan. I don't want to I don't want to imply anything because I come from a place of not knowing.
Okay, well, before that happens, you get your first not quite viewing of Spectre head number 1.
Yes, and the lair.
And the lair.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lair inside the volcano, which is...
pretty awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool set. So there's a fake lake in the crater of this volcano. Oh. And it's a retractable metal roof that they launch their rocket in and out of and have helicopters come in and out of. But so you are shown a scene in which number 1, even though you don't see his face yet, is talking to an Asian man, and it's I don't know if it's explicitly stated, but it's heavily implied that this man represents China. I don't know if they say it outright.
They don't. They clearly don't. He just says my government.
It's heavily implied that it's China. It's trying to
Chinese.
Yeah, trying to start a war between Russia and the United States, and that's why Spectre is doing this capturing of spacecraft.
That is actually interesting. I wonder what U.S. diplomatic relations were like with China immediately around the release of this film, because it could totally be the Chinese space program. It doesn't have to be Spectre.
Right.
Like Spectre could be the one that's organizing it, but
Right.
they're getting their funds and everything from the Chinese. And Spectre works with the Chinese a ton. The red Chinese, as they're so fond of saying.
Yeah.
The Chinese are still red, though, so...
Yeah, what changed?
Anyway, so...
so anyway, you're just shown that Spectre has a motive for doing what they're doing, is the point of the scene. And also to introduce that in the lair, the headquarters of the lair, number 1 keeps a lake and / pond full of piranhas.
Yeah, piranhas.
That can strip a man to the bones in 30 seconds, which... Hold on. Can we just talk about piranhas?
Yes. I actually know where that myth comes from. It's a very specific event. So Teddy Roosevelt once took a trip down the Amazon, or the River of Doubt, as it was fondly called at the time. So he was taking a trip down the Amazon River, and he stopped with this group of natives somewhere along the way to see piranha. Because he had been told about these piranha all the time, and how dangerous and such they are. So the natives knew about this event happening for weeks beforehand. They captured tons of piranha and put them into a net, and they held them there and made sure they couldn't eat for like 2 or 3 weeks. They then took a cow, stabbed it full of holes, and forced the cow to walk into the piranha den. At which point the piranha did rip the thing to the bone.
Right.
But it still took them like a good 15-20 minutes, which is still fast as all get out. But piranha don't actively attack things unless they're wounded or something.
This is the exact same conversation we had about sharks. This is the same thing. Piranha don't attack things unless there's a reason to. They don't just willy-nilly eat anything that comes into their periphery.
Yeah, they're actually quite skittish. There's National Geographic did a really cool thing.
I remember this. I've seen this.
Yeah, where they like put ducks in the water with the piranha.
Just people just walking knee deep in the Amazon, on the banks of the Amazon, around piranha, and they don't
do anything.
I mean, there's got to be blood in the water, or there's got to be a motive for them to eat things. They don't just willy-nilly attack whatever foreign entity happens to fall in the water.
And they even took, in this particular thing, they took a dead duck at this point, and they put the dead duck in the water, and they timed it, how long it took the piranha to start attacking it. And the piranha actually took a good long time. Like, I think it was like 5 to 8 minutes before the first one built up the courage to take a nibble. And then it still took a while for there to be a frenzy. But then eventually there was the stereotypical feeding frenzy. But again, on a dead duck that didn't react to being bit.
Right.
And all that jazz. And it's not to say that the piranha couldn't attack you, but it really has to be weird circumstances.
Right.
I don't think there's actually a single confirmed human casualty to piranha.
I wouldn't know. But anyway, piranhas are severely misrepresented in this movie.
They're also not shown in this movie.
Yeah, you actually never see them. You're just told that they're in the water,
Yeah.
and then you see like bubbles and ripples and stuff like that. You never actually see them. Anyway, that comes up later. It's Chekhov's fish.
It gets it gets done right then and there.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The hog leg gets fed to the leg gets fed to the piranha.
So that you're showing that the piranhas are in there and that they eat things really quickly and whatever.
And as we know, number one kills people who fail him. And so there's this big debate over who he's going to kill. Is he going to kill number 11, who's the redhead?
Right. Oh, yeah. And it's in this scene that you're told that she's number 11 and she's a Spectre agent. You never know that beforehand. It's never said beforehand.
I think he mentions, like, number 11 joined me in my...
Right, but that's, like, in this exact scene.
Yeah.
He says number 11, and, like, you're like, oh, she's a Spectre agent.
Yeah. Well, not only a Spectre agent, but like a top person, and as you said, the lowest ranking numbered person,
that we've seen yet from Spectre.
So, and what I thought was actually going to be interesting there is I thought it was going to be that she was actually the leader. I thought that was going to be the twist, is that the Japanese man was her subordinate, but no,
not the case. Yeah.
So there's this big debate over who he's going to kill. And I'm like, no, he can't kill the redhead because the redhead needs to have sex with Bond some more.
Yeah, but you forgot. The redhead already had sex with Bond. She's now disposable.
Oh.
This is how Bond girls go. So they're walking over. There's a bridge over the River Kwai.
Why?
It has to be. And number one has a little foot pedal to drop the bridge out from under people. So the Japanese Mr. Osato walks over it, and then number 11, Helga Brandt, walks over it, and he drops her in the water, and she's eaten, and like that, because piranhas.
Which is interesting because, like you were saying, it's Chekhov's fish. That's a setup for later in the film that doesn't get the payoff I wanted it to.
Yeah, same.
So
it's not nearly as dramatic later in the film.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
We're then introduced to Tanaka's friends?
Yes, we are then introduced to Tanaka's ninjas.
Who have throwing swastikas.
Yes. So Tanaka apparently runs this school for ninjas where he teaches people how to be ninjas.
Yes. The best part about it, the art of covert secrecy or something like that. And there's just people's
yeah, they're all yelling. You are showing a really cool, pretty sweet choreographed sword fight between one guy and like he's taking on like 5 other guys, and everybody has katanas, and it's a pretty cool little fight scene. Just like it's kind of just like a filler.
But it comes back.
But it comes back later in the film, which was cool. You noticed it. I didn't notice that it was the same thing, but it definitely was.
The cool thing about that too is, regardless of anything that's going on in the movie here, the stuntmen with their sword work was amazing.
Oh yeah, they did really well.
They were using, I would hope, dulled katanas, but the guy was doing these massive swings at people's guts and stuff like that, and stopping like an inch away from them.
Yeah.
And then they were feigning dead. And just the skill that must have taken.
Right.
It was
very impressive. The whole scene is pretty impressive. I mean, it's like they're showing people doing like actual martial arts with varying weapons.
That's pretty cool.
It's just ridiculous that it's placed in the Bond film, and the whole time you're seeing Tanaka and Bond and Aki walk through this school. Tanaka's talking about how they're going to turn Bond into a Japanese.
Yes. And he even phrases it that way, doesn't he?
Yeah.
We need to do 3 things. We need to first make you a ninja.
Yeah.
We need to second, make you a Japanese.
Yeah.
And third, you need a wife.
Yeah. Which is amazing. That's the best part about this thing. Okay.
Why? Why does he need a wife? Why does he need to be Japanese? Why does he need to be a ninja?
He just does, man. He just does. But so here's the thing. This is my thing. Okay. In From Russia with Love, Bond is undercover married to the Russian chick
Yep.
who he's escaping Turkey with,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
They just say that they're married. That's their cover.
Well, I mean, they put on rings.
And they wear wedding rings.
Yeah.
In this film, what do?
They actually get married.
They actually perform a Japanese wedding ceremony.
Yeah, so Bond is no longer single.
Except when he tries to have sex with the woman that he's now married to, she says they're not really married because he gave a fake name to the priest.
Yeah.
Which, who hasn't done that? Right? Right?
No.
Hello? Is there anybody out there? Just nod if you can hear me.
Wait, is it just knock?
Yeah.
I always thought it was just knock.
No, it's nod.
Huh. What is that? Is that Pink Floyd?
Yes, it is. Thank you for
okay.
getting that. I'm so proud of you right now. You have no idea. Yes, from a song called Comfortably Numb.
I went to a Pink Floyd Laser Light Spectacular once.
Me too.
At the
I've also seen Roger Waters several times.
the Pyramid
In Long Beach?
in Long Beach. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's actually really sweet. You have
Yeah.
to tell me more about that once we finish this.
Anyway, so yeah, we see this whole ninja training scene. Ninjas using guns.
Yeah.
Revolvers. I just want to point out that the Japanese had progressed beyond revolvers well before this point. They were actually one of the first countries to adopt a semi-automatic sidearm.
They are shown later using semi-automatic weapons, just not in this scene.
Yeah. But anyway.
And then there's some more gadgety stuff. They show like a little like mini rocket inside a cigarette thing.
Ooh, they talk about the gyrojet. And I
Yeah.
want to take a moment to talk about the gyrojet. The gyrojet is one of my favorite pistol things that has ever existed. So, it is the only pistol ever made that shoots a mini rocket. Now, it doesn't do what it was implied to do in this film. Like, the guy has a real gyrojet and shows real gyrojet rounds, and he shoots it, and it sends a little thing that explodes.
Right, it's like an incendiary device in the movie.
Yeah, that's not actually what the gyrojet does, but that was what the gyrojet was intended to be. It just never worked out that way. It is a little tiny rocket, for all intents and purposes, and you shoot it, and it's a recoilless pistol. The things that are really interesting about this is it's the only gun ever made where the projectile continues to speed up after it's left the barrel, which is kind of cool. But also, because of that, it's not effective at certain ranges because it hasn't had time to speed up.
Sure.
So I think it's closer than 30 feet. It's not actually effective. And so it has to be further. But anyway, there was a guy that carried one in Vietnam that actually killed a guy with a gyrojet.
Awesome.
Which is just like the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you ever see a gyrojet anywhere, they look like a space gun. They're just awesome as all get out. I desperately want one, even though the ammo is like $25 a shot and doesn't work anymore. So
fair enough. Yeah, they what happens next? Oh, this is before the wedding ceremony. Bond
the
is
pig-faced woman.
having sex with a key again.
Yeah, and a key gets poisoned.
Jesus. Did they turn him into a Japanese before or after this? I think it's before this.
Yeah,
oh, yeah. So
because he talks about that.
yeah, so they're. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's talk about the surgery scene that is straight out of Jason X.
Yeah, so they're like having a quote unquote like plastic surgery to turn Bond into a Japanese person. So like they're shown putting like skin caps to make his eyes a different shape or whatever.
Yeah, they make him all squinty eyed.
And then they definitely make a joke about rubbing him down to turn him Japanese colored.
Well, the joke that they make is Bond begs not for them to not wax him.
Yeah.
He said, "Can't you just dye the hair that's visible?"
Yeah.
Which, what?
I don't know.
And yeah, they do pat him down with yellow.
So then the next scene is he's supposed to be... Oh, and they put a wig on. They definitely show a wig being put on him. So the next scene, he's supposed to be like this Japanese person, except it's just Sean Connery with a haircut.
Sean Connery with a haircut, stooping, squinting.
Yeah, stooping and squinting.
Now, here's the thing about this scene that's kind of disappointing that they don't have subtitles, is there's all sorts of Japanese going on in the surgery scene that probably is explaining what they're doing.
Right. It's just bad.
Oh god, they keep calling him Bond-san.
Yeah. They do keep... Tanaka does say that almost every time he says his name. So they show this Bond as an Asian person, I guess, or whatever, and he has sex with a key again. And then some assassin, like, sneaks in to the room that they're in and tries to poison Bond by letting a string down and then dripping poison, like liquid poison on the thing and having it drip down the thing. Except once again, Bond gets lucky and disposes of a woman. And Bond, like, moves his mouth in a way, and then a key moves her head in the most unrealistic way imaginable for a person who is sleeping. And the poison goes in her mouth, and she dies.
She licks it up.
She does lick it up.
Now, this is something I want to say, that this movie subverted my expectations, much like The Last Jedi. So Bond's lady friend gets poisoned. Bond wakes up because she starts coughing and choking and whatnot. And so he sees a guy, and he reaches for something. And I'm like, oh my god, he's going to use a throwing swastika and kill him. No. He just pulls out a gun and shoots the guy, which made me laugh so much.
Right, because after all this quote-unquote ninja training, he's still using the PPK.
Actually, he wasn't. He was using a revolver.
Oh, was it a revolver?
Which I was disappointed in.
Yeah.
But I think he actually loses the PPK earlier in the film. Yeah. He loses it when he gets stopped by the guys with the sticks, the docs.
Oh, yeah, probably. That makes sense.
But I don't understand why he doesn't get another one after that.
I don't know.
I guess Q can't bring him one.
I don't know. Doesn't matter. So then he gets married. Fake married.
To the pig-faced woman.
Who's
not pig-faced.
Right.
Is that's supposed to be a thing?
I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell if that was a joke or not.
Okay, again, casual racism here. Was she not supposed to be attractive?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it was a joke or not. I don't know if that was Tanaka being tongue-in-cheek and joking with Bond, or if he was actually saying, like, she's legitimately ugly, because she's definitely not.
Yeah, she was perfectly fine.
Also, her name is Kissy Suzuki. That's the character's name.
Oh,
not the actress's name.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Her name is Kissy
Suzuki,
yeah.
Which is fair enough. Suzuki is a last name, you know.
Right.
Well, as I keep saying, I don't think any of this was malicious. That's the word I want to say. I don't think any
No, it's not. It's just casual racism. They're not doing it on purpose. They're doing it because they're ignorant.
The only thing that I didn't like, the only thing that I thought was actually mean-spirited, was the fact that they thought the Japanese couldn't have a space program. That's where I draw the line. But anyway, so
they pretend to be a couple who are fishing.
Well, actually, there's a little bit more training, because remember he gets attacked by the guy with the knife on the spear.
Oh yeah,
and he has to kill the guy, and the guy's like, I don't know where that guy's from.
Yeah, and then it never comes up again.
Yeah, so it's clear that the ninjas have been infiltrated by Spectre, which that doesn't help them in any way. Like, it would have been...
And then it never comes up again. Like, it doesn't matter.
See, it would have been great if when the ninjas ninjatude, if Spectre knew they were coming. Because...
Yeah, but like I said, it never gets brought up again, and the rest of... Like, it's just... That scene is meaningless.
Well, I mean, we get Asian Sean Connery stabbing a guy in the stomach.
Yeah.
with a tiny little shiv on the end of a stick.
And so then they go to this fishing village, and then they pretend to be fishermen, and they go find a cave.
I want to mention something about the little fisherwomen. I mentioned this while we were watching
you did
the
while
film.
we were watching it. You did.
You know, I say I don't know much about Japanese culture, and I really don't. But I love watching documentaries on Japan, specifically their culture around fishing and fish in general. I watched a beautiful documentary on koi the other day that was on YouTube about how they raise koi. You know, they're raised in mud swamps.
I did not know that.
But that's beside the point. The point is that these fisherwomen that you see in the background of this James Bond film, these young 20-something-year-old women, were real fisherwomen. And not only were they real fisherwomen, they still are. Those particular women are still doing this like live fishing thing. And it's really kind of an awesome thing where they go down and they like selectively harvest specific shellfish and whatnot. And it's just kind of a cool thing, but apparently nobody wants to do that job anymore.
Yeah, because that job sucks.
I don't know, like if you're a surfer, wouldn't you want to like...
No, I want to surf, not harvest fish one by one.
It's kind of like surfing.
No, it's not.
I mean...
It's back-breaking work, and it sucks, and that's why nobody wants to do it anymore.
They look happy.
In this film, they do.
I mean, in the interviews, too.
It sucks. Nobody wants to do it. Anyway, not the point.
Not the point.
They go find a cave, which
Full of
leads
gas.
them to believe... Yeah, full of gas, and that leads them to believe that there's something ado about the volcano.
Yeah, that the volcano is fake or whatnot.
Right. So then they... Bond and Kissy Suzuki go hike up the side of the volcano.
Yeah, and start making out.
Start making out because... God, Bond and women.
The helicopter notices them. They make it kind of clear that the helicopter notices them.
Right.
Which comes back later in the dumbest way.
Yeah, but first, the tactile neck.
Yeah, it suddenly is day for night.
Right.
And it's suddenly night.
Yeah. And Bond is shown gearing up for an infiltration of the... They find out that the lake, quote-unquote, top is metal.
Yeah.
Because Bond throws a rock at it, which I'm sure nobody inside heard.
They make a very big point about nobody inside hearing.
Yeah.
That's why I was complaining about the tractor.
Right. Yeah, it's nighttime and Bond is shown wearing his tactile neck, which we don't know where he got it from because
He didn't have it earlier.
he didn't have it earlier
And
when he
it's
was
blue.
hiking. And he has suction cups on his
Oh.
hands and on his knees.
Why?
Because here's why. Because Bond is scaling down the cliff face and then gets the inside the roof of this thing, so he's presumably hanging upside down. But here's the thing. Sean Connery, the actor, is not actually hanging upside down. Sean Connery is crawling on his hands and knees, and they turned the camera upside down.
You know what? I bet you they just even turned the film upside down.
You're right. They probably just turned the film upside down.
But here's something I want to say. Maybe we're not thinking about this hard enough. Much like he was using that seagull as a cover for his bubbles.
God, yeah.
What if you can't actually get leverage on your legs if there's suction cups? Or like if you put suction cups on your feet. Maybe they actually have to be on your knees so that you can get the leverage with your thighs to pop them off. Maybe this is really well thought out. And we were the ones being dumb about this situation.
I don't think so.
I almost think that's the case. Mythbusters, get on it.
Yeah.
Start your show up. Figure that out. You know, they did actually several Bond myths.
I do know that. We should do one of these about that Mythbusters.
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually something I've already been talking about with Matt, that Matt and I have been reviewing other things that are outside of movies.
Sure.
We, plug for my own video. We did a whole thing on Leafy is Here, where we talked about the documentary on Leafy is Here, Leafy was here, and Content Cop on Leafy is Here. So
Anyway, so Bond sneaks in. He's sneaking around.
Finds the
base,
cosmonauts.
Finds the one living American and the cosmonauts. And
Something happens where one of them disappears. Either the American disappears or one of the cosmonauts disappears.
Yeah. Again, like, probably just continuity error.
One thing I adore, by the way, is that, so we talk about, all this casual racism. There's casual anti-Americanism in this film. The American goes, so, you boys astronauts? And they go, in our country we call them cosmonauts.
Yeah.
Like, I love that the American knows so little about the Soviet
Union, yeah. Anyway, so Bond busts the cosmonauts and the American astronaut out of their little jail cell, and then they fight some guys.
Presumably one of them dies in that fight scene and we just didn't notice?
I don't think so.
Because there's only 2 of them later.
I know. Again, just continuity error.
Okay. They gear Bond up.
Yeah, they go sneak into where the Spectre cosmonauts, astronauts.
They're astronauts.
Spectronauts. Yeah, are gearing up for their launch to steal the next American spacecraft, which is being launched.
Yes, and this is when we're shown that how they're upping their game to instigate this war.
Right.
They painted
CCCP
on
with a hammer and sickle on the
Red Star.
On this, is it Red Star? Whatever.
Yeah.
Spectre-mobile.
Spectre-mobile.
Yeah. Where it was previously unlabeled so that nobody knew whose it was.
Is Tanaka our...
Yeah, Jamaican McThird Wheel. I was going to bring that up. Yes, he is. Absolutely. Yeah, Tiger Tanaka is this film's Jamaican McThird Wheel.
Yeah, he is. Anyway, and there's no knockoff anyone in this film, by the way.
No.
Like, no one looks suspiciously like anyone.
Right. So anyway, they gear Bond up in the spacesuit because he's going to go get in the spacecraft and, like, prevent it from taking the American craft. He never really says.
Why don't they send the Oh, let's talk about the cosmonauts. I want to say a few things about these cosmonauts. One, these cosmonauts, they don't have enough spunk. Why didn't they fight while coming
fight back.
Yeah. Cosmonauts are armed. I adore that. Cosmonauts are armed in case of bears and wolves and whatnot.
Space bears. No, but like actual bears.
Yeah.
Like when they landed in Russia, they had to survive on their own until they got rescued.
So they would have like a rifle for taking small game. I think they had a shotgun for protecting themselves against bears and whatnot. And I'm sure they carried Makarovs. I actually know that there's a really big thing about one of the Soviet pistols because it's like one of those near $1 million guns. Guns very rarely get hugely expensive. Very rarely. And so like the examples of the hugely expensive guns are like the pistol Hitler killed himself with. That's for sale. You can get that from time to time. And one of the cosmonaut sidearms.
Sure.
Like, because
it's been to space.
Yeah. And like guns don't go to space.
Right.
Very rarely do you need to shoot something in space.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, the cosmonauts don't fight back. And then the people who are trained to go to space aren't put in the space suit. They put Bond in the spacesuit just because Bond. Anyway, so Bond's about to get in the capsule, and number 1 says, "Wait, stop that, Spectronaut," and bring him here. And this is when you're introduced to number 1 for the first time officially.
Yeah.
Bond actually, they take Bond's helmet off, and you actually see his face, and he says, "My name is what? My name is who? My name is
Blofeld?
Slim Shady." His hold on, Ernst Stavro Blofeld. He's the leader of Spectre.
I also want to point out that this was a callback reference that our man James Bond gets noticed for a very similar reason he notices the other guy earlier in one of the other films. Remember, he notices that the guy's not a woman because a woman doesn't, open her own doors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he gets noticed because
he's
astronauts don't
Yeah.
put their own AC unit in.
Right. Yeah, whatever. So he meets Blofeld #1 face to face. You actually see his face. He's, he looks like Dr. Evil. I mean, he's what Dr. Evil is based on.
Yeah. Huge scar, stereotypical
bald,
evil German.
Yeah. So they launch their craft to go attack go capture the U.S.
Yeah, they do.
craft, and then you see the army of Tanaka's ninjas appear on the ridge above the crater.
Just a flood of ninjas.
And they all run down.
Highly disappointed.
Yeah.
That they weren't
They're
just wearing black.
detected somehow. There's sensors or, I don't know, cameras.
Well, they started breaking into the thing.
No, they're detected before that.
They are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's like an alarm that goes off, and they start... The Spectre guns start shooting at them, and there's mortar that goes off just by itself with no humans needing to operate it. And then Bond uses his little cigarette
May I have a smoke?
gun, to oh wait, hold on. This is a great line because Bond says something like, "Well, I can't remember what he says. If you're not going to kill me now, like, can I have a smoke or something? Or if I have to watch TV, can I have a smoke?" And then Blofeld says, "Well, yeah, it's not the nicotine that'll kill you. Obviously, the nicotine won't kill you. It's all the other crap in the cigarette that'll kill you."
Yeah, that was beautiful. But we didn't mention that we're now on a ticking clock. We have 8 minutes to stop the thing.
8 minutes to stop the thing.
And how are we going to stop it?
Oh, the exploder button. Yeah, we're gonna stop it with the exploder button that Blofeld gives to his bodyguard, who we haven't mentioned, but is Hans. He's just Hans. He's a big blonde German wearing all black, so you know he's a bad guy. He gives him the key to the exploder button.
It says blow him up after they do it.
Blow him up after they do it. Yeah. Then Bond shoots the guy who's controlling the retractable roof.
Yep. As well as the guns.
With his cigarette. Yeah, with his cigarette gun. He goes and opens the roof so the ninjas can get in. And then there's just a kind of a cluster of a fight scene with all the ninjas coming in and everybody shooting each other. And then...
Everyone's color coordinated, though. So
everyone is color coordinated, so you can tell whose side is on... Who's on whose side.
The bad guys are in white and red, and the good guys are in blue. Very America.
Yep. So you can't... Then you get to see kind of the cool scene with the guy with the sword.
Yeah.
He does the exact same routine as he did in training.
They flub it ever so slightly.
Yeah, where he doesn't hit the last guy in the head. He stabs him in the stomach or whatever.
But that probably was just a thing about not being able to...
The choreography was the exact same.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool to see it repeated. And it's clearly that guy because he's wearing the same, sort of gray periwinkle powder blue tactile neck that everybody else is, but his is slightly different so that he's still sort of wearing the same thing he was earlier in the scene when you saw it do it the first time, so you know it's the same guy.
And later we do see his face again.
Right.
He takes off the mask and all that.
So yeah, Bond,
well, Blofeld is trying to get away.
Blofeld goes through a secret escape hatch.
Yeah, the cat's freaking out.
And then the cat just disappears and you never see it again.
Yeah. I kept expecting him to, do something with the cat. Save the cat.
Yeah. Then, Blofeld is, about to shoot Bond, and Tanaka...
This is the price of failure.
Right. Not so much.
Well, then he
says he shoots...
the other Spectre agent.
But I'm trying to remember his name.
It starts with an O.
Osato. Yeah, this is the price of failure. And he's pointing the gun at Bond and then shoots Osato.
Yeah.
And then tells Bond to keep coming with him, at gunpoint. Then he gets on one of his little monorail cart things. And he's about to shoot Bond and Tanaka throws a
An
throws
actual throwing star.
An actual throwing star and hits him, and the gun falls off, and Blofeld just escapes.
I do.
And this is Bond getting lucky again.
I do find it funny that it's clear they had normal throwing stars. Why did they focus on the throwing swastikas earlier?
I don't know. They just did. So there's a fire in the control room, and Bond notices everybody leaving. There's still this huge fight going on, this huge gunfight going around everybody.
I was having flashbacks to Shark in Venice.
Stop. We're not even talking about that. Bond says there's another way into the control room.
Yeah, because he sees the control room technician.
Right. So they go up the stairs, and Bond shoots some people, and then Bond gets in the control room and sees Hans, and Hans has the key to the exploder button. I want to make it perfectly clear that it's called the exploder button in the movie. We're not just saying that to make fun of it. They literally say the words exploder button more than once.
Yeah, Bond even tells Tanaka they have an exploder button. That's how we're going to solve this.
Right.
And originally I was thinking maybe they don't want to call it a self-destruct button because maybe that would imply the self-destruction of the base, not the thing. Maybe that's why they're not calling it that. But then he doesn't explain that either. He's like, they have an exploder button.
Yeah, they just have an exploder button.
What's funny is because they have an exploder button for the base too.
Right, because Blofeld hits it. Yeah. That comes a little bit later.
I know, but too many exploder buttons.
I know. So anyway, yeah, so Bond gets in there. There's a fight scene with Hans, which isn't quite as good as the fight scene earlier in the movie.
Okay, so Hans is doing this slow walk over the bridge over the River Kwai. And I'm so stoked. We have our Bond, our hero, gearing up for the fight of his life. And he's kind of meandering towards the desk. And I'm like, please, for the love of God, just accidentally trip the thing and have the guy fall in.
Yeah, but then he wouldn't be able to get the key to the exploder button.
Yeah, the guy could have had it in his hand and thrown it. I mean, there's ways to ride around.
Anyway.
Right around it.
So they're fighting and throwing each other around, and then nothing really important happened. Bond takes the key out of his pocket when they're grappling or whatever, and then they get in a situation where Bond throws Hans in the water and he gets eaten by the piranhas.
Yeah.
And it was kind of extremely anticlimactic.
As actually a lot of these Bond fight scenes kind of are.
Right. Yeah. So then Bond goes and activates the exploder button, so the Spectromobile blows up before it captures the American space shuttle.
At 0005.
Yeah. They already did the 007 countdown joke. That was in Goldfinger.
Yeah, I know. It should have been in this one, too.
Yeah, you're right. Should have.
Although it is...
I almost said something to you while we were watching the film. I was like, they should have...
But it is the fifth Bond film, right?
Yeah, that's true. Oh. But they should have... They never show the timer with more than a single-digit number of minutes on it. So there was no reason for that extra thing. Yeah. They could have just had it being single-digit and counted down to 007. It would have been the same.
And like you've been saying this whole time, it's very tongue-in-cheek. It should have been tongue-in-cheek there.
Right.
Now, one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting is I was hoping this whole time that the missing cosmonaut astronaut was actually in the capsule. Because I was hoping Bond would fail. And then it would be like, twist! That's where the guy went, and he saves the day.
Nope. But we're just missing a cosmonaut somewhere.
It would... I know, it's 1967, kind of, big Cold War things going on. But how cool would it have been if a Soviet cosmonaut saves the day in a Bond film?
It couldn't happen. Couldn't happen. Not 1967.
Okay, an American astronaut.
It's a British film, so again, couldn't happen. Anyway, then you're shown Blofeld escaping and hitting the base self-destruct button, which is activating the volcano.
Yeah.
Because they were able to keep it dormant somehow. They don't really explain that, but everybody's like, we got to get out of here. They all swim out the tunnel that Bond and Kissy discovered earlier. You get one last twist in the film where they get on a life raft. Oh, then you're shown these planes dropping life rafts.
Yeah.
A bunch of them. Bond and Kissy somehow end up with one to themselves, and they're
Gonna have sex on the boat.
gonna have sex on a boat to end the film, like what happens in most Bond films, except then a submarine surfaces underneath them, and lo and behold, it's the submarine that M and Moneypenny are on, and apparently have been on for the entirety of the film.
Indeed.
They never left.
And we do get at the end.
We do get at the end.
And we get a comment about bring the dinghy on board.
Yeah.
Referencing Bond, not the actual
Bond,
dinghy.
Not the dinghy, yeah.
Okay. So there's a few things I want to cover that we didn't cover.
And that's the end of the film.
It is. And that's why I want to cover a few things that we didn't cover earlier. One, the continuity of Kissy's shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes she's in her underwear, sometimes she's in a shirt, sometimes she's not. It's weird.
Yeah.
I want to point out that the continuity of the, or what I was going to say earlier about the helicopter noticing them and coming back, the helicopter's just shooting at Kissy. So, like, we're supposed to think that she doesn't make it to get help. She's the one who brings the ninjas.
Right.
So, and another good joke, I said, it was lame. In the beginning of the film, they're talking about Peking duck and how Chinese women taste funny. And, Bond has, the two goons come in, shoot him, and then immediately leave. And I just turn to Chris and say, eats, shoots, and leaves.
Yeah. Which, if you don't get that reference, look up a book called Eat, Shoots, and Leaves.
Yeah.
It's got a panda on it.
Amanda?
It's got panda.
Oh.
It's not Amanda the panda.
No, I was making a Tropic Thunder reference.
We're talking about good films here.
Yeah, like Tropic Thunder.
No, you're wrong.
They both have...
There's a thing. So, like, it's interesting that you bring up the continuity issues in this film because it's not a thing that we've really seen in the Bond films before. I can't remember us specifically mentioning it.
No, this had way too many
films.
moving parts.
One of the reasons for that, I think, is it was a new director. Lewis Gilbert was that his name? I think it is. Yeah, Lewis Gilbert directed this film. This is the first Bond film that he directed. The producers were the same, but and the production company was the same, but yeah, new director. It was a lot bigger budget than anything else, so
Yeah.
a lot of moving parts. I think that probably had something to do with it. And also during filming, Sean Connery said that he didn't want to do Bond anymore. And my thought is that may have caused some strife on set.
Yeah,
I don't
can't
know.
imagine
I
how
don't know that for sure, but they had already, the production company had sort of already signed on to do On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the next film.
The credits even say that. Don't worry, Bond will be back.
Will return in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but Sean Connery, during the filming of this movie, said that he didn't want to do it anymore. And I imagine that could have thrown people for a loop, and maybe that's where some of the continuity issues come from. Just because people would not be
as persnickety.
Yeah, well, you're just thinking about other stuff, I guess.
Well, most of the continuity issues are in the big fight scene. And that makes a hell of a lot of sense why there would be issues there.
Right.
I think there was one continuity error that we mentioned in the earlier films. But, hey guys, we're not CinemaSins. We enjoy these films. We just, cracked wise, as it were, for 2 hours and 10 minutes on all of these different things that we thought were like continuity errors or plot holes or, subtle racism and whatnot. But none of it detracts from the film. The film is still fantastic and fun, and like we said at the beginning, at least in my opinion, it's the best Bond I've seen yet. As the posters say, bigger, badder, bolder Bond. They say that like in every poster.
I'm sure they do.
It's like builds up the biggest Bond yet. Well, this was the biggest Bond yet. The stakes were the biggest. This is our first one where the world is at stake. Before it was, gold? The world's gold supply.
Right.
The space program.
Yeah.
The U.S. space program was at stake in one of
Right.
them, and only marginally so.
Right.
What were the stakes in the other ones?
In From Russia with Love, it's literally just the chance to get a
Decoding
code-breaking
machine.
Yeah.
The possibility of losing Miami.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Miami might have been nuked
Yeah, that was a
in
possibility.
Goldfinger.
I want to make some joke about it not being worth saving, but we may have fans in Miami. The look on Chris's face in dead silence.
Jose's in Miami right now for a wedding.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, his whole family lives there.
Actually,
Shout out to the Cuetos.
I was going to say, speaking of which, I actually was thinking about Jose the other night. I want to have him on here
Ask him.
for multiple reasons.
All right, do what you got to do, man.
All right. So anyway, that was You Only Live Twice, which, by the way, does get awkwardly worked in. Blofeld says that at one point.
Oh yeah, when he's first introduced to Bond, he says like, "You're supposed to be dead," or "I thought you were dead," or something, and Bond says, "Oh, I'm on my second life," or "This is my second life," and Blofeld says, "Well, you only live twice," and we just love awkwardly working in the movie title. It's so good.
It's kind of weird too because the title has so little to do with the film. It's like they almost had to.
It's literally just that line.
Well, and the beginning scene where he gets shot and then wakes up. Why?
Yeah, what's the point?
Like, you could have had that entire scene except Bond lives.
Right.
All you would change with that entire build-up is not have the funeral. Bond gets shot at. He gets out of the Murphy bed. There's a chase to the thing. He dives in the river. He gets picked up by frogmen. You could have the exact same thing happen, but they had to give a reason for the title. So, like, Goldfinger is about Goldfinger. Thunderball is about Thunderball, the aircraft. Dr. No is about Dr. No.
From Russia with Love is about a Russian woman defecting that loves him. But yeah, but I mean, like,
and she writes that on that was funny because Bond writes it.
Yeah, Bond writes From Russia with Love on the picture.
But it would make so much sense if she wrote that to Bond,
right?
Based on the situation. And what was the other one? Well, this is the other one. Those were the four. Yeah. I don't know.
Roald Dahl famously said that this is Ian Fleming's worst book. He said, quote, "with no plot in it, which would even make a movie." I guess it was just like Roald Dahl basically thought that this was just Ian Fleming went on vacation to Japan and just started writing about Japan and plopped Bond in it for some reason.
Well, I mean, why not?
So the "You Only Live Twice" thing was clearly, I mean, it was the name of the book, so Ian Fleming came up with it, but clearly was not a well thought out.
Well, was it thought out more in the book? That's what I'm wondering.
We would have to read the book to know, but I'm inclined to believe Mr. Dahl's statement and say that no, it wasn't well thought out.
Well, it is a good title. I don't know for sure, but I already hate the title On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I don't like that. I would prefer if it was like I don't know, Her Majesty's Secret Service.
I think it's a very British. I think it's a very British title.
Well, as I don't know much about the Japanese, I don't know much about the British.
Yeah.
I've only spent almost a year in England.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the next one. First one without Sean Connery. We'll get introduced to Mr. George Lazenby.
Yeah, a man I've never heard his name before.
Which will be fun. So
cool. All right, so join us next time, dear listener. And until then, see you out there.